Welcome, everyone. This is one of our monthly LaTerra Strategic Business Partnership webinars with ILTA, and we are going to recap all of the excitement, adventure, and fantastic content. We're going to recap that today for you all so you can understand what we covered and find out where you can get recordings, et cetera, et cetera. So here we go. Before we get too far into this, I want to make sure to share a disclaimer that for anything that we share during this that is of confidential nature, you are certainly welcome to share with your colleagues, but please don't share outside of your own organization. Next, we want to share a few housekeeping elements, please. And those would be, we have in the GoToWebinar environment, we have a kind of Q&A section that you'll see in the little panel that is on your screen. Understand that chat is turned off, your mic is muted. So what you'll need to do for any questions you have, any comments or feedback we might request of you, put it into that Q&A area that you see on your screen. There is going to be a poll, and already we're going to thank you in advance for your participation. And after the webinar, we are going to send to you a link to the recording. We'll also send any emails to the address that you registered at for any unanswered questions we can't get to in our session. So with that, let's go ahead and herald in our agenda. This is so exciting. I feel like what we have here, honestly, is the Rockstar Club of ILTACON. And Rockstar Club meaning, you know, ILTACON 2023, but also before and even beyond. So we are going to hear from the conference co-chairs, those who were co-chairs in 2023, and the co-chairs that are upcoming and already slated for 2024. We're also going to hear from two conference attendees. We are going to share a few insights about the G100 and G200, and also insights from a few LaTerra sessions. And then we have a kind of, you know, montage collage kind of thing we're going to share with you to show you what LaTerra looked like at ILTACON if you weren't able to be there, or again, even if you were there, you couldn't be everywhere in that show. So we've got some things to share there, and then we'll queue up what's next. So with that, I am going to welcome our panelists who are the conference co-chair folks. And we will introduce them briefly here. Scott, I know that you can't be on camera, but we can hear you. So you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and your role at your firm?
Sure, I'm Scott David. I'm the Director of Legal Project Management and Process Improvement at Vorey, Sager, Seymour, and Peace in Columbus, Ohio.
Awesome. Rodney, you're next.
Yes, ma'am. Rodney Mullen, Senior Manager of Software Planning and Development for McGuire Woods. And I am the co-chair I was co-chair for 2023 and now co-chair for 2024.
All right. And Donna, oh my goodness, you had a big job at this year's ILTACON, but it's going to be bigger yet next year. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Donna Frugoli. I am the lead application support analyst for Seyfarth Shaw, and I am out of the Chicago office. And I'm the incoming 2024 co-chair with Rodney.
Awesome. So I am now going to just ask a number of questions of our panelists, and I'm going to get started now. So first of all, Scott, for you, how have you been in ILTACON, you know, involved in ILTA or even, you know, ILTACON through the years, and what roles have you served in? And by the way, what was it that drew you to volunteer in them? And this question I'm going to have for all three of you.
Sure. The first part, I've been involved as an ILTA volunteer in various roles for about a decade. And it was about 8 years ago that I had a role on planning one of the ILTACONs. I was part of the volunteer team. And then I had been, for most of that time, working on planning content throughout the year. So some of the webinars and the podcasts and the quarterly magazine that you see. I was involved a lot with that, and I moved into some of the leadership roles there. And then a couple of years ago, the opportunity came to switch back over to ILTACON and be a co-chair, which is a pretty rare and special opportunity. So I decided to jump on that, and that's what I've been doing the last 2 years. And now that the conference is over, I've started a new role where I'm helping to lead content planning again throughout the whole year, which now includes those webinars and things like that, but also working with people like Rodney and working with our team that's done the Legal Tech Summit on content throughout the year for those events as well.
So Scott, I want to thank you for both ILTACON 2023 and 2022 when you were co-chair there. And I am so excited that you're going to be taking on this new role. So it's great. Thank you again. So with that, Rodney, let's cue you up next.
Sure. So my path to the ILTACON team has been roughly 10, maybe 11 years. Obviously I came through as an attendee, was enamored with a lot of the volunteers who were working at the time. And actually, Tim Golden brought me into this environment and introduced me to the backside of how conferences put together. And so I signed up as a session coordinator, did session coordinator role for several years, trying to understand exactly how sessions were created. It gave me the opportunity to connect with individuals and speakers that I probably would not have had an opportunity to do so in my regular job. And so then I decided that, hey, this is great. I think I did a great job as session coordinator, and I moved to team coordinator. And I served in the team coordinator role for about 3 years, and then now co-chair.
Well, it's an elite club, and newly entering that club of co-chairs is our Miss Donna Frugoli. Donna?
Yes, so my volunteer roles all started because of Rodney. The firm that I was at previous to Seyfarth Shaw, I didn't get to be able to attend conference. It just wasn't one of the options that I had available to me, but I had always been contributing to the communities and attending local events and getting involved as best as I could in my local area. But then when I changed jobs, that role now allowed me to go to conference. So since I knew it was my first conference in 2014, I went on to the ILTA page and updated my profile and put into my volunteer page those things that I thought I could be helpful in volunteering for, thinking it was going to go into this black hole of nothingness and I wasn't really, going to get used. And maybe 2 days later, I get a phone call from Rodney that, hey, for conference this year, I've got this session about document automation. Would you like to speak at it? It looks like you'd be a good fit. So I ended up speaking for him for that session while he was a session coordinator. And so while I was there, just being a speaker, I got to work with people that I would never have met in my day job, similar to how Rodney mentioned. So I got to talk to other volunteers. I got to speak with other speakers. So that led me to be part of the content committee team that did the content throughout the entire year. I did that for 3 years. And then while I was on that content team, there was another volunteer who said, hey, you'd be great, volunteering for a conference. You go every year. Why don't you put your hat in the ring for that? So I applied to be a session coordinator and I was chosen. So I did that for a year. In my second year of session coordinator, my current team coordinator had to step down for various reasons. And so they asked if I'd be willing to be team coordinator for the rest of that year. And I said, sure, why not? I didn't volunteer for it, but okay. So I did it and I loved it. So I continued to do it. And then like Rodney, the co-chair role came available and I said, hey, let me apply for that too. And here I am.
You know what, you all have really just given, I think, the greatest talk about what it means to volunteer at ILTACON and what it means to volunteer within ILTA. And your contributions, again, we're so very grateful for. So with that, I really wanted to talk next about, as you reflect on ILTACON 2023, what educational sessions or themes stood out to each of you? And Donna, I want to go ahead and start with you.
Sure. So I think two big themes really stood out for me throughout conference. The first being actual usable ways to incorporate AI in our environments. I think for a lot of years, we've had sessions about AI, we've talked about it, but it all seemed to be that really high level, oh yeah, maybe someday. But this time I felt like this was the first time we had concrete, usable actions that people could go back to their firms and actually start using it in some way, shape, or form. And then I think the secondary theme was about moving to the cloud, hosted solutions, how to bring them into the environment, how to get them to work with your on-prem solutions. I think we're getting enough organizations that are moving to the cloud that we can now have some really good, thoughtful conversations with each other about it, instead of, oh yeah, there's those firms that they went first and they're trying it and dipping their toe and see what wrong steps they made. This time I think enough people are in it that we're really able to share with each other those stories. So I really think those two were the biggest takeaways for me from conference.
Great. So Rodney, how about you? What were the themes that you were really interested in?
Yeah, so we focused on, at least I focused on, and we brought a lot of people to conference this year, and we were focused on a couple of different things. But like Donna, the cloud was key for us. We're highly focused around migrating, moving to the cloud, understanding security associated with the cloud. So that was our focus. Along with that, we also were really tied into understanding IG frameworks, information governance frameworks, and how they could be applied at an organization like McGuire Woods. We've done information governance over the years, but it's been loose in the sense of you've got different departments, our records department, our people from our IT team sort of doing this job along with our Office of General Counsel. And so what we saw, I know for my firm, for the first time, we actually hired someone full-time for that role, really focused on helping to drive that. And so we used a lot of the information that we gained from coming to ILTA this year to help drive some policies and things that we're setting up.
That's great. And again, the hiring of that role, I think that's kind of one of my questions upcoming, by the way. So let's see next. Scott, how about you? What themes resonated with you and your team?
Yeah, I think first of all, what Donna and Rodney said, absolutely, those were big themes for the conference entirely. And for our firm, we were looking at a potential new e-discovery solution, and kind of tying on what Donna said, some of the AI and generative AI that is now in those solutions is pretty interesting and new and different than what we were looking at in previous years. So we think we kind of had some good timing on that. Another topic that I know it was really powerful, two other topics that were really popular. One is there's still a lot of interest in Teams and leveraging that in various different ways, from client collaboration to making your phone system. Those were really popular sessions that we had around different ways to use Teams. And the other thing that was very popular was the project management, change management, and how that can work in a law firm, and how you can be more successfal on all the different things that you need to work on and implement when you leverage some of those techniques and best practices there. So those are also really popular. And then, so Sherry, is there supposed to be, am I supposed to remind you of a poll, or is it too early, or am I too late? I can't remember.
Yes, there's a poll, and in fact, you're kind of, introducing it because you have forward-thinking goals for the results of this poll. So get ready, everyone. We are going to launch a poll. Go ahead there.
Okay.
Scott.
So Sherry, you and I were communicating about this, and one of the things that Rodney, Donna, and I are all in the ILTA leadership, and we're all always looking for what's next, what is interesting for our members, and where we should have more content. And We didn't include generative AI in this list because it's kind of an obvious one, and it's something that we will definitely have content around, but we're looking for interest around beyond that. What else was there? That was kind of the, what do you call it, the 1,000-pound gorilla or whatever at conference, but there was a lot more and a lot of other things. So we're interested in what the attendees in this webinar are thinking about.
So Kim, I'm hopeful that we have our participants inputting their responses. We'll give you all maybe a couple more seconds, say 15, 20 seconds to respond. And it's so interesting because, again, you all mentioned that these were even the popular sessions, you know, popular tracks this year. So obviously there's a rich appetite for this continuing into next year. And I would ask you, Scott, this isn't even just for ILTACON programming, right? This is for others.
Yeah, this is covering ILTACON and beyond, any programming from ILTA that we're actively getting ready to plan our 2024 year. And this kind of information is really helpful for us as we figure out what makes the most sense and what we're doing.
Okay, so Kim, are we ready to share the results? Ooh. So change management looks to be the winner. Scott, are you surprised?
I'm not surprised. And actually, it's interesting that there's kind of a pretty good balance between all of these. So, you know, even the difference between the first and last place is pretty small. So there's a lot of interest in all of those, I would say, on there.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
All right. Well, thank you, audience, for helping Scott in his endeavors ahead. We're going to see some of these topics turn up, I know for sure. So with that, it's kind of interesting. One of the topics was M365 on our little poll, and I have the privilege of introducing two attendees at ILTACON. And if I may go ahead and have you advance a slide. Paul Duffy of Mayor Brown is Global Director of the IT Modern Workplace, which is a role specifically created around Microsoft 365 and the services that they deliver to their users at Mayor Brown. And then Paul Buchan, who is the Director of User Experience at Wiley Rein. Kim, at all, were we able to get Paul Duffy into the session or no? Oh, sorry. So Paul was having some troubles connecting to audio. So Paul Buchan, are you able to take the slide that Paul created and kind of decode that for us, the word cloud?
Sure, I can give it a shot.
Great. Go right ahead.
Oh, so for everybody who's in attendance, we were having a conversation about how we're going to differentiate between the Pauls, but unfortunately, since Paul's not able to connect right now, I will take the lead for both Pauls. So Paul was good enough to take a bunch of topics and put them into word cloud. And I think like maybe a lot of people or most people or everyone, just based on our recent topic of conversation, I think everybody thinks that AI would be the biggest and boldest. And as you can see from this, it's not, it's mixed in with everything, but you see management, legal, data, change are all kind of big topics as well. So I think that everybody's going to ILTACON for different reasons. Everybody's going for the same reasons, but it's interesting when you put all of these topics in here and assume that AI is going to be the most crucial, the most popular, that it's really not necessarily that, but it's also because it's mixed in with a lot of other things. I was talking with my CIO yesterday and just kind of giving him a debriefing on the conference, and it seems like most of the vendors have some kind of AI in their title now in their new platforms. Maybe they're not all ready for that, but I think they realize that if there are 10 other companies in the same business and 9 of them have AI in their title, we better get on board as well. So clearly it's something that people are interested in, and it's coming along further and further every day. So I think that's something that all of us are looking for, but it's interesting when Paul put this together that AI is definitely in there, but kind of a mixture and not the biggest topic that's in there.
So Paul, I want to mention two things that are very related to that. Number one, that what I believe Paul did, and again, I'm fairly certain this is how he did it. He took the actual agenda, you all, from all the sessions at conference, and he threw it into the word cloud builder. So this is vocabulary, raising up from that, which I think is a really cool way to represent this. But at lunch, Paul, I sat with a gentleman who told me, yeah, AI is a big topic here, but you understand that it used to be, like last year, it was called big data. And so it's almost like his word cloud sort of spit that back out, right? That it really is about all of the data. That's like our step one. And I just thought that was kind of an interesting takeaway from how he built this. Now, Paul, I have actually a couple of questions for you, because uniquely, you weren't just an attendee at ILTACON this year, you were a speaker. So I'm interested in knowing what exactly drew you to the sessions you attended, and then also what can you tell us about the session that you delivered?
Sure, thanks, Sherry. So I have been going to ILTACON for quite a number of years, and just remember being there one year and thought, I could do that. I could talk at one of these sessions. So I started to apply. I believe it was 2019 was the first time. And then in obviously there was no conference in 2020. 2021, when it was a little more relaxed, and we tried the hybrid thing where they allowed you to speak at more than one session. I spoke at 2 sessions, and I spoke last year and this year as well. And I love doing it every year. This year, what I talked about with a couple of other panelists was how to acquire and nurture and retain your talent. So my firm, just as a little bit of background, I'm the director of user experience at a firm in Washington, DC, and I oversee both the training department as well as the technical support team, so the help desk. So we're providing training as well as support. And I remember recently, I had a former colleague, I'm also some would say recovering, but I'm gonna say former lawyer, and I was reading something a former colleague of mine who's a labor and employment attorney posted on LinkedIn that really just hit me. And it just said, the days of firms or management telling their employees, you should be lucky just to have a job here, are gone, because #mass exodus, right? I have 2 great teams now, and I don't want to lose them. Clearly, we have to balance. We can't give you, like our help desk, they have to come in a couple of days a week. I can't let them work remotely all the time because we're supporting people in the office. I certainly can't double their salaries, but anything within reason that I can do. And to me, the biggest part of that is communication. Anything I can do, though, to keep them from going to the firm across the street, I want to do. One of my co-panelists works at a firm that outsources everything. And his take on it was, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with having to educate people. I don't want to deal with having to retain them or hire them. Let a third party who focuses on that do that. And then we also had a third panelist who works at a third party provider who does that, who was able to talk about the trends that they're seeing, why firms are calling them, what they're having them do. Are they having them do help desk? Are they having them do more kind of level 2, level 3 work? So I did have a lot of people come up to me afterward who said, I agree with you. We have most of our stuff, if not all of it, internal, and we do want to keep our teams. So I sort of had that pat on the back of reassurance, but I know that not every firm is the same. Interestingly, the title of our session was changed a little bit based on the recommendation of one of the panelists, and it was changed to Revolutionizing Legal Support, Embrace or Abandon, and really wanted to talk a little bit more about AI. And I said, let's not do that. I get it. I understand that the support teams' jobs are changing because of technology is changing. But because there were so many other AI sessions, I didn't want this to be a session on that. I really wanted it to be a session on, what do you do to acquire your talent? What do you do to nurture and educate them? And what do you do to keep them? So that's really what our session was about. For me too, Sherry, I go to the conference every year looking for it's always interesting to me from a training perspective. It's always interesting to me that we're all in the same boat as trainers, but I'm fascinated by the fact that some firms do new hire training for 15 minutes and then people are on their own with videos. Some firms do 4 weeks of new hire training and we're in the middle. And I always find it interesting how differently people are doing the same things. And I always pick up things. I think the way that we're doing it is perfect, and I realize it's not. It's just different than what other people are doing. But I love to get the perspective from different firms and what they're doing from a support perspective as well. I also want to, just on a quick topic, and you know, Sherry, I can talk for an hour and a half, and I know this is a brief session, but I just want to quickly thank Scott Rodney and Donna and all the others. Going to the conference as an attendee, I don't think that most people think about what goes into it, which is a testament to how well the volunteers do, because we don't have to think about it. We can just show up, we know where we're supposed to be, and we don't have to think about all that goes into it, from the signage to the swag to the sessions and the rooms and everything that gets done. So I just want to say a quick thank you on behalf, I assume, of all the attendees of the conference. We don't have to think about that. We can just attend and enjoy it, but we understand what goes into that. So as an attendee, though, it was amazing to see the turnout. I think this was, if not the biggest, I know it was one of the biggest turnouts. The vendor hall was in 2 spaces, and it's great to see that. It's great to see people out and about again compared to, let's say, 2021. I like to go see what's out there, but I also like to go to my current vendors and say, hey, I'm not having any problems. I just wanted to come, introduce myself, see you, and say, you're doing a great job and we're happy customers. So I think it's important to have that communication with your current vendors as well as future vendors too. So I always like to go and see our current vendors, but also, of course, see what else is out there. We don't always know what else is out there, and it changes every year, of course. As far as the sessions go, I was a little bit at a deficit because I was the only one from my firm who came this year. We're going to change that in the future, but there were so many sessions going on, and you have to just kind of, you know, Sophie's choice, right? You have to choose the one that's best, knowing that most of the general sessions were recorded and I can go back to them. So unfortunately, I missed some of these sessions I wanted to attend. I'll definitely catch up on those that were recorded, but you know, you want to attend everything, you're just one person, and it's overwhelming, as conference always is, but overwhelming in a good way. So to be an attendee was great. To be a speaker is always amazing to me. I look forward to continuing to do that in the future too, if they'll have me.
And I think the multimedia production of it, I think will make all of our recordings so much better, because there were even sessions in certain rooms that were video recorded as well. So, you know, these were things that you all did to kind of even step that up for those who might purchase the recordings after the fact. Again, I also want to applaud for all of that. Paul, thank you so much. And we are now going to transition into a next session. This is really a topic, and it was a topic woven throughout various aspects of ILTACON this year. And our own Julia actually got to speak not only in a session, but on a panel that happened kind of just because you were going to ILTACON. And I need to really call this out to all of you. This whole thing happened because of this ILTA SBP partnership, Strategic Business Partnership. That was how the session got nominated to be heard, was through this program. And so again, another double underscore of, you know, how ILTACON is, and ILTA itself is nothing but a connection that begets connection. So with that, Julia, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Thank you so much, Sherry. And thank you. I love that I'm following up with Paul's, because he really kind of centered a lot around people. So my name's Julia Satchel. I'm the Global Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Latera. It was my first ILTACON. I've been in this industry of diversity and inclusion for about 20 years in about 5 different industries. But this was my first ILTA. I've been in tech for about 5 years. So one, thank you all audience for attending. I was really excited, but also it's a little bit trepidatious if you think about it. You're sharing the stage with AI. So I know D&I was, as Sherry said, the first formal track. And in that launch, you're competing with AI and a lot of things that are happening there. What I thought was incredible was ILTACON in general, or when you go to conferences for tech, it usually centers around tech and companies, and they're the main features. And with this D&I track, it meant also alongside product was people as fundamental to competitive advantage. And that gives weight to the work that we've been doing for a long time in terms of D&I leaders, and it aligns it to business. And so that was a really, really powerful thing happening this year, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to attend. And also, I just wanted to take this moment with a gracious thank you for the courageous programming of ILTA Planning Committee co-chairs, and also echoing Paul's sentiments on how much work that is. So without further ado, I'm going to go to the next. Thank you so much for the advancement. Just really quickly on that. Perfect. So before I even get into here, D&I was proud to hold 2 platforms that showcased our approach to talent economy. One was fostering excellence. So like as Scott said, really around D&I as a driver to team initiatives and organizational performance. And I also had very esteemed panel members, VP Maribel Rivera and Chris Boyd. And then the second one was actually a great opportunity to be able to be featured as a program showcase. So ILTACON, even on top of that, doubled down and asked for any DEI or ESG work that was done, and you would have to apply for it and saying, what do we want to be able to feature? And I was with a plethora of different amazing colleagues that actually got to showcase that. I'm going to wrap it all in one right now, so we have an opportunity to kind of get a little bit of a flavor of what we learned, and I'll create it in a bit of a story. So the very first thing you're seeing right here, as you know, is there's no crying in baseball. Just want to make sure this is the next one. Thank you so much. So I'm not sure if anybody understands or remembers or recognized this quote. It's quite famous. A League of Their Own is a 1992 American, so it's a little bit American focused, this reference. And it was a sports comedy drama film that tells about fictional account of a team getting together with expertise, different unique skills and abilities in baseball. And it was based around the real life All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, actually, which is a true league. And this famous line that Tom Hanks, the manager of all of these unique individuals and skill sets that came in, says, there's no crying in baseball, because a certain person was crying at the time. And one of the things this whole movie is around is not actually the skill sets, the great talent that we all hire. The reason why we are competitive is because the innovation that comes in how teams work together. The whole movie is actually centered around team cohesion and creating the safety to cry. I opened up 3 questions, so we can go to the next and the next and the next, if you don't mind. Thank you so much. I opened up with 3 questions to the crowd, and I asked them to raise their hands. So number 3 was, do you feel that you are valued for your strengths and contributions? Do you feel safe to express your opinions? And also, do you feel that you have opportunities that you're seen? Right? And then 85, this number, one of the things that we talked about was the longest running study of human behavior was by Harvard Business Review, 85 years. And one of the major number 1 findings in that 85-year study right across the board was in terms of positive relationships being built. That's how you are the happiest, the happiness factor. And then 36, this is a percentage, 36% of our time in a year, if we work a 40 to 50 hour week, is actually spent at work. So let me get this straight. Seen, valued, and heard is incredibly important. And positive relationships being built in our team if we spend over 1/3 of our life with our work and our teams. So now we know that that's important. Next slide. One of the things that we talked about, and I'm not going to read this off to you, it's definitely going to be shared, I know. Just a highlight was, let's put some parameters around this. So we talked about Gallup and Google actually built in. There's lots and lots of research about psychological safety, and that was the point. If you want to feel seen, valued, and heard in your talent, you have to start with psychological safety. It is the lever to employee engagement, retention, and performance. And just like Paul said, he reiterated, our talent is incredibly important, and there's a talent challenge in keeping talent and wanting them to stay. Otherwise, all of these things, including AI, including being innovative, is stalled because we're struggling with keeping our talent and the intellectual property of resources that they build. There's a limit to psychological safety and D&I work. It is not the elixir. It's one of the things I talk about all the time. Well, let's get D&I in there and that'll solve all of our problems. And it's not. We have to look at, there's a limit to that. We have to have an organizational structure with leadership, creating safety for these things to work. If I put up my hand and I have the safety for my opinions to be heard despite dissent, that's how innovation happens. That's how bringing all those unique experiences actually are put into practice. And the value of value. Research tells us and is valuable to employee engagement and team performance. One of the things that was important is creating that communication with your talent to say, here's why we're starting here. We need to build trust with you first. It's a give before we ask. It's a give to your talent before we ask. So quickly moving on, thank you to the next sentiment. This is some of the things that we presented, were key takeaways as part of the panel. So Maribel and Chris had their own case studies, which were really amazing. One was about relinquishing power to create decisions when coming back to work and asking people to come back to work and saying, instead of us making decisions top down, let's ask. Maribel was talking about looking at interview process and the way they had looked at really reconstructing, deconstructing and reconstructing talent and interview and funnel and what that looked like. We centered around, once you're here, what's really incredibly important when you're going to launch strategies to keep your talent here. Understand your talent economy first. And what we did at Latera is we launched a 3-year strategy that included learning and listening, but we also said, where are you at with your teams? Just like in schools and in classrooms, any of us that have kids, parents, nieces and nephews, adopted, whatever it is, you don't know what's going on behind those doors. We want to know what's happening in your team. 2, treat talent as capital. And I wish I said this, I wish I invented this, but this was McKinsey's top 10, 9, 1 of 9, future-proofing your company for the future. And that's one of the things is the keys, is to treat your talent scarcer than capital. And this is a great way to be able to put alongside business priorities is what are we doing with our talent priorities? And number 3, North Stars. A lot of people talk about that. If your company hasn't, I'll tell you really quickly. It means where do we vision? Where's our rooftop going? And that often is about verticals and creating competitive advantage and also building towards the next and what we need. AI. Look at all the things that were interesting to people. It was all about product and AI and how we're using it. But those North Stars need D&I lighthouses. As we're going fast, we're a private equity company, right? M&A, highly acquisitive, transitioning, fast moving and pace. So D&I is that pillar in culture where people want to stay and want to be flexible and agile and be able to be resilient. Next one, thank you so much. And one of the things that I think is really important, I saw this on LinkedIn for people that follow, I'm on LinkedIn actively, often pushing boundaries of way we can think about things, just like I'm talking about here. And these are one of the things that I wanted to really link when people are talking about going into verticals and, vendorship and looking at how big 2 floors of products coming in to build suites to offer, right? The customer experience will never exceed the employee experience. And this is arguable and debatable, and I'd love another session on that. But I really do believe that the employee experience is what contributes to a great customer experience. And so that's my role, is to be able to bring that in. So next, that's a good transition into our second session that we had, which was our ESG feature. So if we click on it, one of the things we did was that, okay, now that we've done all this in a couple of years, and I'll just really summarize this, we launched something called Project Fiducia. This is, yes, playing off of the word Project Aristotle. I don't know if a lot of people know this or not, but in 2008, Google launched, why are some teams performing so amazing and so great and being innovative? And why are some not? And what they found out was those teams were able to fail, be seen, they had psychological safety. What I wanted to do was to be able to say, okay, well, in this environment, in this company, PE, M&A, what does our talent feel and think? Because it's a whole different milieu. And what we launched was Project Fiducia, which was this question and case study, and we got to feature it alongside others that did a lot of case studies. So one of the things that we wanted to be able to showcase was, this is the next one, is, thank you, here's the findings. So on the left-hand side, We wanted to know, did this have impact? 74%. Always room to grow, but team's insights and questions discussed with my team, or sorry, the insights and questions. So what we did was we did a survey, and then we launched that survey and created them to leadership action plans. And all those leaders went into their teams and said, so here's what you told me. Here's what you told me about psychological safety and inclusion and equity. And then what we did, and those are levers. Those are research-based levers by Gallup towards engagement and retention. 74%. It increased psychological safety just even having those conversations. Okay. So even though we may have some of those questions, there was 19 in total that were lower, what we wanted to ask in Project Fiducia was like, even though these may be lower, which ones were most value to you? And guess what? Seen, valued, and heard. So there is crying in baseball. I wanted to end on that. Thank you very much.
Julia, thank you. Again, I think that your comment at the start about the weaving of this topic throughout all of ILTACON and how that performance and gosh, Paul Buchan even mentioned it, right? We want to keep our teams, we want to keep them happy, and we want to keep them learning. And really, it was a confluence to bring this to ILTACON. So thank you so much for doing that. Well, what is is a very brief overview about what happened in the G100 and G200. These are, if we can move to the next slide, for those of you who may not be aware, they're sort of like, I think of them as almost conferences within the conference, right? On Monday during the week of ILTACON, the G100 CIOs and related parties, G200 CIOs and related parties, all meet to have a big sort of open discussion. And the topics that they covered ran the gamut. I mean, fascinating, actually. And by the way, I should tell you that this is a invite-only session. It's not something that, you know, all of us ever get to attend. But what they do is on Thursday, they do a session summary. So it talks about, you know, what did they kind of talk about within these two summits, and that session summary is always on Thursday. So basically, the G100 and 200 spoke about the state of the market for legal, because what's the business context drives what's the technology context. Generative AI, surprise, surprise. Talking with lawyers about tech and preparing them for change, more change management, Scott David, that's true. Securing your heavily integrated systems and the vendors involved. And then finally, a session around cloud adoption. So there were some parallels between the 200 and G100, but if you will, you know, the kind of takeaway on that was really that the G100 is really driving some of what happens. You know, they're very influential because they can kind of jump on certain things, but in many respects, they're not quite as agile either. So the two kind of divisions of these firms really brought out, I thought, a lot of great context. What I want to mention, though, is that there was a session, I think this one was in the G200, and it was about virtual meeting platforms. And as we are sitting here presenting to you on GoToWebinar, a really cool topic, but not so much about the virtual meetings, but a little statistic that came up. And Julia, this is going to tie back, in fact, to one of your comments about experience. So apparently they told a story about Tesla and about how the data was showing that there were 14% of the Tesla owners that actually spent more than 8 hours a day in their car. Now, I mean, if you all think about it, they all can't be on a road trip, right? Like, what were they doing in that time? So they dug into the data only to learn that the people who were spending that amount of time were doing it because of, are you ready? Because of an app in the Tesla car that was for Zoom conferences. Sometimes they were sitting there parked. They might not have been driving, but they were sitting there parked. And it's because inside the Tesla, there are these cameras that, you know, are in the back and in the front, and the whole entire experience of delivering a virtual meeting from inside a Tesla was so riveting to everyone. The takeaway was, it's always about the customer experience. And so I thought that was a really interesting takeaway, even though there's so much more substance to this. So let me share with you how you're going to learn more about what happened in those two summits. The fact that there is a recording of the session summary that will be coming out. I understand that many of the handouts are available in the Visibo app that we used at ILTA conference, but none of the recordings just yet. They are coming any day. If you are a registered attendee, you will get them for free, the actual recordings and videos. However, if you are not an attendee, you cannot acquire them. And so again, those details will be coming out in just a few, within this next week for sure. So I wanted to mention all of that, and I thought that story was really cool given our virtual meeting. So Amber, you're up next to talk about what did we have as our presence at ILTACON.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. If you go to the next slide, we just wanted to share right now on our website, you can watch Sherelle's corporate update where she launched several new products, some of which are available now, some of which are rolling out over the coming months. And, really did a overview of the promises that she made at ILTACON 2022 and what we had delivered in the year since, as well as how we've made a lot of positive changes at Latera in the last 18 months since she became CEO. So there's two parts of this on YouTube that you can watch. The link is in the chat there for both parts. So definitely suggest checking that out if you want to see what Latera has been up to for the past year and what we're working on in the coming months. And if you go to the next slide, this was just a quick visual overview of ILTA for us. It was my first ILTACON, and it was truly a whirlwind. We had some amazing thought leadership sessions in our booth. We had a lot of great meetings, a lot of great sessions. We had a fantastic party and a lot of great dinners and events. So just really thrilled with how the conference went for us this year and excited to start planning for 2024.
I thought it was inspired that we had demos at the party. That was really cool. I mean, I think the context was so different for everyone, but it was such a great advantage there. So thank you.
A funny story about the demos at the party. We told people we needed to have DDs, designated demoers, because we wanted to make sure people were showing up to their demo slots, but we had so many people sign up for demos. We actually had to go beyond the hour that we had scheduled for demos at the parties, and we were giving demos until midnight because lots of folks saw the products that Sherelle presented in her corporate update. We had folks that came to the party, got a demo, left to go get their CIOs and drag them back to the party to see the product. So would definitely encourage everyone to check out the corporate update video that we dropped in the chat, because there's a lot of fun product demos in there if you didn't get to see it at ILTA.
Wow, thank you so much, Amber, and thank you for having organized all of this. It was exciting to see. So, okay, so this is our wrap up now. I think we're down to what exactly has been your ILTACON experience. So if you wanted to, we're gonna put this in our email back to you all. If any of you can share your own ILTACON experiences, whether this year or prior years, or what you're looking forward to doing next year, please put those into that Q&A panel. We don't have a chat able to be enabled, but if you can put them in there, it would be great just to kind of share some additional stories about your experiences at ILTACON. So we wanted to then tell you what's next, because through our strategic business partnership, that's kind of double, SBP partnership, we have a number of upcoming webinars. Our very next one is going to follow the pattern that we started with Latera Compare, but our next session on October 11th at noon Central Time is going to be a transition series discussion all about Latera Create. We're bringing our product experts, we're bringing the folks who identified the whys and the where this product is going, as well as a customer or two who are either implemented with Latera Create or maybe are in process. And then the next month, we're going to do a transitions webinar of moving to Upper Sigma, which is our CRM solution. So those will be great things to share with all of you, because these are not sales strategies. These are actually, how do we get you from where you are to where you need to go? So I think there's going to be a lot of great lessons in it, and we'll be sending out more information soon. So with that, I want everyone who is a Latera customer to realize these are some quick contacts, email addresses, links to resources that you have about our products. And equally, I now want to ask all of our panelists, please, to come back on camera, because we want to thank you so much for sharing everything that you all did today and everything you all did to bring the programming that we were able to all of us take advantage of at ILTACON 2023 and in the future. Thank you to Donna and Rodney and Scott and Paul Duffy, and Julia and Amber. Honestly, what a big team experience. Hey, Paul. So thank you all, and we will see you in our next webinar. Again, thank you so much. Bye, everyone.